All right, what's going on, everybody? Broken Games HDR back at it again with another video. So this is going to be the review for Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4, which I believe is called Day 1, the same naming convention that they used in the game, Seattle Day 1. So by the way, apologize, there was no weapon wheel yesterday. Had a very important family event to go to, so couldn't do the episode, but we'll be back this Sunday. All right. This episode was to me. Um, Funny enough, even though like barely anything happened in like last week's episode, that was like more their mourning and funeral episode. I kind of enjoyed that one more than this one. This one was, it just didn't really do anything for me. I think like I don't know. I just feel like they tried to make things happen, but nothing actually happened. So let's talk about it. All right, so we start out by getting a little bit of like origin and backstory on Isaac, who we know from the game is the leader of the WLF Washington Liberation Front. Now, in the game, Isaac probably has like 3 scenes. He's meant to be this like very menacing, cold blooded leader that everybody respects, but we don't really get to know much about him. Um, and so they probably had the chance to do it in the game to give us a little bit more on him, but the game was most people feel like the game was probably already long enough. And I guess the thing with The Last of Us Part 2 is there are a lot of characters that you could expand on, but the trade-off is once again making that game longer. And you don't want to I guess you don't want to Game of Thrones it by giving every character this this expansion and trying to like get every detail off of that off the branch of that character. But in the TV show, because they skip certain things, they have the liberty of adding other details to some of these characters. So we see that in the show, Isaac was originally a Fedra soldier. In the game, that was not the case. We do know he has some military background, but it's never specifically said he was ever a part of Fedra. But that's very plausible because a lot of members of WLF come from different factions. They come from all walks of life. Some of them are Fireflies, some of them could be Fedra, some of them could have been former Raiders. They could have been anything. Um, and these Fedra soldiers are just, telling stories about what they call this about the citizens and how they were treating the citizens. They called them voters. And last in the Last of Us world, there's like a nickname for every faction. Not every, but a bunch of them. Seraphites are called scars. Um, I think they call some people tourists. That's like tourists are like, people who are not from there. Voters, they called the citizens voters, and Isaac explains to one of these Fedra soldiers who's pretty green and pretty novice that they're calling the voters sarcastically because they took away their rights. And this Fedra soldier was just talking about how, they were kind of getting on one of these civilians for handing out pamphlets, and he said he thinks it was religious materials, most likely referencing like maybe the early days of the Seraphites or the prophet, maybe even the prophet, um, evangelizing, I guess, essentially. Um, so Isaac is the sergeant of this federal squad, and he goes to talk to the people in this town. Um, and this might be, these people of this town might also be original members that start to form the WLF. Um, or maybe they were WLF before Isaac. Don't exactly know the chronological order of how things happened. But we know Isaac does become the leader. So he picks one of the federal soldiers, like I said, the one who was kind of green. He's clearly a novice. Um, Seemingly because like he's not complete that soldier was not completely like indoctrinated and poisoned by being a federal soldier too long. So Isaac throws a grenade after speaking to the people of his town. Isaac throws some grenades in the back of the truck with all these soldiers, killing them. And this is his defection from Fedra to become a wolf. Um, so that's a lot more that we got about Isaac than in the game. So that was cool just to see, what motivates him, what makes him tick, and all that good stuff. Mm. Excuse me. So then we get to Ellie and Dina checking a pharmacy for some supplies, and it's Weston's, the same pharmacy from the game. And this was I seen this coming a mile away. It was a dead giveaway that Dina was gonna find some pregnancy test and do a pregnancy test and confirm that she is pregnant. Um, so that happened, and then we go, they are like checking tanks for supplies and traveling around. Um, by the way, there does as implied in the game, it does seem like there was like a mass exodus from Fedra to the WLF and other factions because I think at this point Fedra is kind of extinct or completely disbanded. It was supposed to be like the military, the government's military and forces, they seem to be completely disbanded at this point. So yeah, Ellie and Dean are checking tanks for supplies. They see the TV station with WLF on it, and they know they eventually need to head there. But Dina, advises Ellie that might not be smart in broad daylight, and going directly in line of sight. So they waste some time going through this music store, which is a part of the game. I don't need to get into the details of everything in this episode. Some of it, even though it happened in the game, some of it kind of just seems like filler. Um, so we jump to Isaac interrogating the Seraphite, and I think that to me this was the best part of this episode, the most interesting part of this episode, because it gives a lot of details between the war going on between the WLF and the Seraphites. Um, and he's interrogating this Seraphite to get the details out of him of where the Seraphites will attack next. Um, and the Seraphite speaks about the fact that there are some parts of their faction that believe the prophet was just an actual person. And some believe that she's an actual god. If you remember from the last episode, that Seraphite, he pretty much boldly proclaimed that, listen, the prophet was just a person and she died. And this guy seems to be a little bit more extreme, um, a little bit more of a zealot, and believes that she was an actual god. And this is very authentic because in all forms of religion, there are deviations and divisions of belief systems within the same religion. There's different beliefs in Christianity and all the other religions, and that's why you have all these different types of churches and denominations and all that stuff. There's some people believe that some things happen, and some people believe other things within the same religion. So that's pretty realistic. So I found that pretty interesting. I think in the game, I don't really remember the Seraphites looking at her like an actual god. I don't know if there. I don't remember uh there being this division of like, was she a god or was she a prophet? I think all of them looked at her as a prophet, but that didn't mean they thought she was any lesser because she was just an actual human. I don't think that mattered to them in the game. I think this is something that they're just calling out in the show. So the conversation between Isaac and the Seraphite is important because it shows like this pointing of fingers and this placing of blame of who were the original offenders in this war. And this shows that there will never really be real peace between the Seraphites and the WLF because each side believes that they are in the right and the other side is in the wrong. So that cycle continues. Oh, you shot this person. No, you shot this person. No, you stole this. No, so it's just this back and forth of like, even though there was a truce, the truce was in the game. That truce was broken because something happened. One person did something. Now the other side retaliates. And that's why it will never actually be real peace. So it just shows once again, kind of like a bit of an objective view that neither side is necessarily wrong or right. It's just all about perspectives. And of course, you can relate this to a lot of things going on in the world, obviously. Um, The Seraphite speaks about how some WLF, the reason why they will eventually win the war is like because some WLF are gonna defect and become Seraphites, and that's happening. And I'm not really convinced by that. I don't actually think that's happening in mass. You know what I'm saying? I think that is a little bit of delusion by the Seraphite to think that the huge army of the WLF, that you have enough people defecting and going to the Seraphite side to be on their side, that the WLF would eventually lose. That's not. I don't believe that for a second. Um, I just don't see. I don't see enough upside of the people who are part of the WLF looking to the Seraphites and seeing that, hey, the grass is greener over there. I don't see that happening. Now, granted, a lot of people can be convinced to, a lot of people get convinced to join like a cult and things like that. Um, excuse me. No cuts. So it's possible, but a large amount where it would like tip the scales of the war and who would win it? No, that's not happening. Don't believe that for a second. The Seraphites are the weaker side and the underdogs in this war. Very clearly, they're outmanned, outpowered, all of that stuff. They have some things to their advantage, but most of the advantage is on the side of the WLF. Um, so yeah, and Isaac, is continuing to torture this Seraphite with like just third degree burns and using the pan to burn them. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna get all this information out of you. But the Seraphites are so like devoted. He's like, yeah, listen, take my hand, and Isaac understands, okay, he's completely devoted to his cause and his belief system. So this is absolutely pointless with this particular Seraphite. So he just kills him. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to get anything out of him. He already got his hands out for more burns, volunteering before he's even ready. So this is done. So Ellie and Dina get to the TV station, and I didn't really like this section. It just felt so rushed. Like they get to the TV station, and before you know it, they're out of there. I felt like they could have spent more time here because it was such a big part of the game, I guess. So they get to the TV station, they see all the WLF members that have been shot by arrows and disemboweled. Um, and by the way, before this, in the game, Ellie and Dina get ambushed by an explosive set by WLF, and Shimmer gets killed, and that's where you see, Ellie and Dina kill Jordan and another guy. And essentially, this is removed because Jordan isn't even part of the group that Abby was with. That Jordan and that other guy wasn't even, they're not even in the show. So they've essentially skipped that whole section. That doesn't exist because that person doesn't really exist, if I'm remembering correctly from the previous episodes. Uh so yeah, so after Ellie and Dina see all these guys disemboweled and it looks like a horror scene, WLF arrive, they hear it on the radio, because they call for the WLF call for backup before they got killed. Uh, and what's so funny about the WLF, the dialogue, bro, it sounds straight out of the video game. I'm talking about word for word inflection, and just it sounds like even like the same voice actors from the video game. The whole fan out, Scars could still be here. Find him and kill him. I'm like, yo, that's literally straight out of the video game. So even just the way they act like the NPCs from the video games. It was kind of funny. Um, so Ellie and Dina are hiding. Ellie goes upstairs, and this soldier passes by her, and this is not convincing at all that Ellie could grab. Listen, I'm all about suspending belief, and I apologize that I keep beating this dead horse about Ellie being able to kill any of these dudes is just not convincing enough, even when I suspend belief, but I gotta say it. She tackles this dude. She tackles him, puts him in a chokehold. Like, no, no. You are like 100 pounds soaking wet. I don't believe you can tackle I don't even believe you could tackle this guy even by surprise and, like, get him to the floor and get him in a chokehold. I don't believe that at all. I'm sorry, I don't. Um, so she's just too small. Anyway, so yeah, she tackles him, puts him in a chokehold. Another guy shows up. Dina shoots him. And Ellie stabs the guy in the neck who she was holding. Like, yeah, right. I feel like this is why the show is kind of avoiding a lot of combat encounters with Ellie and Dina because once again, when you look at them, this is like two Rugrats taking on grown men. That's what it really looks like. It's two Rugrats taking on grown men, bro. So it's whatever at this point. Nothing we could do about it. We accept it. Enjoy what you can out of the show. But this is once again why uh, the casting of her just wasn't the best. Maybe a recast would have been cool. Just two characters that actually look. It's funny because like in movies and TV shows, there's been this bad habit, like in the past, of casting grown grown ass people to play kids in high school, and you're looking at like, yo, that's a grown ass man. Why does he? Why didn't Why did y'all cast him to play somebody in high school? It's not convincing at all. Like that was a thing, especially in like the '90s and 2000s. And now with this show, this is the one show we couldn't get actual adults to look like adults. We got adults looking like kids. It's like this is the reverse problem that we've had. But anyway, so they run out of the TV station, and eventually to the subway, and now the WLF are down there with their flares and also a ton of infected. And Ellie and Dina run, but they get stuck in like this turnstile gate. And by the way, this is obviously in the game. This is a much longer section. Um, this one went pretty quick also. So they get stuck in this turnstile. Dina does, and Ellie puts her arm in front of Dina to get bit instead because obviously Ellie is immune, and obviously this is a deviation from the game because until at least next week, if you've seen the trailer for next week, there will be spores. Um, and so there will be spores, but it seems like it's only in very certain circumstances, and that seems to be the basement of the hospital that it's going to be in. But in these Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin gave an explanation why, like, they replaced it with, like, the tendril roots, for, like, mostly outside because the characters would just have to be wearing, these gas masks everywhere and things like that. So, they changed that, um, because in the game, Ellie's mask is broken and Dina's gonna give her hers and shit like that. So, they had to come up with a different way to reveal that Ellie is immune to Dina, and it was just her getting bitten instead of Dina, and then uh, Ellie eventually telling her that, "Hey, I'm immune." So they run out of the TV station. Like I said, get to the subway, the turnstile, and they get to the movie theater, the infamous movie theater where a lot of shit is gonna go down. Um, So Dina has a gun to Ellie because she thinks Ellie is about to turn, about to turn into an infected. Ellie tells her she's immune, and Dina watches her all night because obviously she doesn't really believe it. Uh, and she obviously doesn't turn. And then Dina tells Ellie she's pregnant, which apparently makes Dina very horny, and now Ellie gets to fingering her. I don't know. The transition from "Hey, I'm pregnant" to making out, going, you know, full lesbo carpet munching and fingering, I was like, "All right, sure." Um, whatever. So, uh I guess the danger and the adrenaline and all that shit got to them, and they're like, "Oh, let's fuck." Okay, I guess. So, they talk about Ellie talks about she's been bitten before and she shows Dina. Dina confirms she's bi and all this stuff. And her mother told her, she told her mother when she was younger she was bi, and her mother told her, no, you're not. And that's kind of why she forced this relationship with Jesse, even though she likes Jesse, but she was like, he's not the one. So they're kind of like spilling their guts to each other and all that. And Dina shows Ellie all the pregnancy tests that she took, and Ellie's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a dad." What is like, okay, pretty. I guess this is meant to be a funny moment, but Ellie still clearly identifies as a woman. So the "I'm going to be a dad" joke, I was like, all right. Ellie still believes she's a girl. Whatever. I guess I get the joke. They hear the radio go off. And they hear Nora name dropped, and this is like near the hospital, and what's the neighborhood called? Lakeview or Lake Hill? Because they go on the roof and see the explosion. Ellie knows that she has to get to Lake Hill. That's the neighborhood where shit goes down in the game. A lot of combat scenarios, and she doesn't want Dina to go because she's pregnant, but apparently they're gonna go together. Another deviation from the game because Ellie goes is supposed to go alone and then eventually run into Jesse. And I'm and this is also where uh Tommy is supposed to kind of be running through. I'm not sure. I mean, it has to. It has. Let me not say I'm not sure. It has to. They haven't actually pointed to the fact that Tommy has left Jackson and is out there too, but has to be. That's a huge part of the game that just has to happen. So I don't think that's a deviation that they're gonna change. So that was this episode. Wasn't really anything like compelling. I was watching it like, okay, I watched it kind of late. I didn't get to join the watch party. I was like, yeah, I didn't really miss anything. The best parts, like I said, was, just learning a little bit more about Isaac. And it's the same person that voice acted. I think it's the same person that did the voice acting for Isaac is the actor in this show. So he's pretty solid. He's pretty good. So yeah, that's the recap for this episode. Let me know what y'all think, man, and I will catch y'all on the next video, and I'm out of here. Let me know what y'all thought. Peace.